In a world where the system of oppression will never change, in a world where the oppressed and the minorities will never have a platform or pedestal where they can voice out, for change, where they can achieve a better life, we think that it's only justified that these individuals go towards the need of violent protest, go towards the need of achieving that need in the first place. In my speech, I will tell you two things. The first, why will the quality of life improve for these individuals, and how do you achieve change in doing so? Secondly, why is the world we live in? Why is the world we live in now horrible for African Americans? But how do we justify it, and how do we go about it? We think that we will just characterize why status quo is horrible for African Americans. We will also tell you why the quality of life for a minority is better when we support violent protests. Then we will tell you why. Then we will compare. We will compare the current system in which minorities and the oppressed subject to whether it's better than whether it's better than the violent protests that they're going to be subject to now within our policy. We're going to achieve two things within communities. We think that we're going to increase awareness for oppression, but secondly, minority groups will be commuting together to fight oppression as a whole and increasing the opposition to that system that has forever oppressed them. So we support things like damaging personal property. We support violent protests. We support violence when it's necessary. When you fight police officers when they unfairly arrest you or unfairly accuse you of within the streets. We think that this is necessary in order to achieve change, in order to achieve awareness, in order to tell people that these are individuals who are being oppressed and unfairly. So the first argument: why is the world we live in now horrible for African Americans? We have three reasons. The first, we think that minorities are victims of historical oppression. So for many years, these are individuals who have been put down on and have been recognized as individuals who have lesser resources, lesser money, and this puts them on a pedestal. That is lower than the privileged individuals that live in our society. So these are individuals who have been historically oppressed, who have been historically deprived of money, historically deprived of resources. These are individuals who live in the ghetto. These are individuals who have been historically oppressed. This means that the cycle will forever exist if we don't do something about it. The second reason is that these individuals are systematically oppressed by the majority race. They are systematically deprived of jobs. They are systematically denied opportunity to go further or to achieve a higher pedestal. So this includes things like institute education by companies where employers will unfairly accuse individuals because of their race, because they are African American, or because they are minority as a whole. They won't necessarily prefer looking at their merits, looking at how they are qualified into achieving their job or achieving for their company. They will look into their criminal records, they will look into their race, they will look into where they're from. Because these are individuals who are oppressed individuals. We think that this causes these individuals to be stuck in a cycle of being underprivileged for a very, very long time. The third reason why these individuals are living in horrible conditions is that the authorities often disproportionately use their powers against their minorities. So given that they are in a higher position, given that the stereotypes always exist, given that these individuals are privileged, we think that these are individuals who will forever carry out discrimination without having any proper justification, because that stereotype will always exist. So police brutality will always happen because the stereotypes towards African Americans, that they are criminals, that they have that certain attitude towards society, they have that certain image towards society. So even if these things aren't true, even if African Americans aren't really individuals who commit crime, they are individuals, these stereotypes will always exist because of the historical oppression that they go through, because of the entrenchment that the majority race, the white privileged individuals have caused, have created in the social strata. Why is it incredibly difficult to escape from these stereotypes? And why is it incredibly difficult for us to change within the current system of oppression? We think that in this scenario, because the stereotypes exist and because the privileged individuals exist, we put controlling these stereotypes, in controlling who gets opportunity. This means that they control various platforms for the minorities to voice out, the minorities to become. This includes the media. So the media necessarily portrays these individuals in a negative manner. This means that minorities get little attack in comparison to privileged individuals because the stereotype is they are less favorable because of their stereotype, they're less favorable because they are on a lower pedestal. So the media companies will necessarily prioritize the majority. This also means this likely means that there is a lesser lobby power for minority individuals because they have no ability to financially veto these laws because they are underprivileged. And the privileged individuals that are majority on your side will always have an upper hand because they are financially capable and they have no account whatsoever for the other groups, the other minorities that have been forever oppressed by these individuals in the first place. So we think this is scenario is incredibly difficult to escape from because they do not have resources and they do not have the support of the main platforms in the society. Before I move on.
If you now encourage the violence among these people, now you just justify the stigma that these people do commit crime. How does this help to
why does the culture of violence movement make that comparison? We think that violence protests create more media awareness, create more awareness in general, right? Because they're going out on a bigger pedestal in achieving change. This is a platform in which society has to realize that it's getting serious. It's an unavoidable scenario. So, for example, the Black Lives Matter protest in the United States, still going on now, has caused politicians like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders to now cater for these individuals because they've been forever on the streets. They've been forever wanting to achieve change, and they will go to the violent protest to achieve that. So we think that if people, even if people are afraid of this violence, we think that there is more likely of incentive to push for change for protection of themselves. So if they are afraid of that this violence is entrenched, that means they will push for change. These are individuals like Hillary Clinton, these are individuals like Bernie Sanders, who feel that though they need to protect society and they need to protect the oppressed groups as well. So the comparative is this: even if there is no push, even if there is no push for change, we think that at least minorities no longer accept oppression as a whole, and they go against it. They go against the system that has been forever oppressed in the first place. So for all those reasons, we think that violence is a necessary need in achieving that goal. Because all other alternatives will not work because of the current situation that they are in. They need to figure out a manner in which they can achieve change. They need to figure out a manner in which they can help society listen, help society change.
Thank you.
Innocent lives being lost. People who weren't involved in discriminating these minorities paying the price for what others have done. And so that is just some of the harms that they failed to mention that would definitely occur in their paradigm, but I will be bringing up in my substantives. But before that, a few rebuttals towards the DMC. So he wanted to talk about how these people have been stigmatized and how these people have been wrongly accused for committing crimes where they didn't. But now, now it's a stigma, right? But now, on their side, they're actually reinforcing it and they're justifying it. They're validating the stereotype that African Americans will go to violence and will go to barbaric measures to achieve their needs. So we think that it's very harmful towards the image of these oppressed minorities, and I'll be talking about that more in my substantives. But on my second rebuttal when he talked about how violence is the only way for you to get a big media coverage. We don't think this is true, but to reply to that. So firstly, we think that today's society is quite saturated in violence, so people will immediately dismiss it into something negative and into something tainted. So people look at violence and they think, and they immediately just connect it with like bloodshed and like horrible negative things. And we don't think that this is an image that the minorities, that these oppressed minorities should want to tie to themselves. We don't think that this image of bloodshed and crime should be tied to these minorities, because the media coverage you get is going to be biased, definitely, and so they'll definitely paint these people in as bad a way as they can, and especially with violence. It's so much easier to demonize violence than it is to demonize peaceful protest, which is one of the alternatives I'm going to talk to you about today. So now on alternatives that are definitely better than what they have brought up. So let's take a look at some alternatives that have been extremely successful throughout history. Let's take a look at what Gandhi had done. In the Salt March, he led a peaceful protest that was eminently successful because the British themselves were bringing the oppression onto the Indians. They respected Gandhi's peaceful movement, and they respected that the fact that he hadn't resorted to violence, because we see that violence is like seen as an act of desperation, and so we think that by doing so, the message that you're sending out is that you're uneducated and you just want to fight to have your way. But on the other hand, when Gandhi led the peaceful protest, the English themselves were impressed, and they actually granted the Indians like minor taxes, and they ceased to oppress the Indians, right? But you see that this is a good example of why peaceful protests work, because previously there had been a lot of bloodshed, but the bloodshed had amounted to nothing. But we see that once Gandhi led the peaceful protest, it actually succeeded. So we think that in the same manner that peaceful protests are needed for in order for these oppressed minorities to be able to get their democratic channels or whatever, or like a vote. And so we see that another prime example of people getting democratic channels is when the women protested for the vote. We see that their peaceful protests, their campaigns were all successful because they never involved in violence, and that in a misogynistic, in a world where males rule, women managed to get their right to vote by doing this peacefully, and they didn't attempt violence, which is what side opposition wants to uphold today. So now moving on to my next substantive on how violence escalates. So they said that they characterize, let's say, these violence as like maybe like some damage personal property, or like attacking the police that first like treated them unfairly. Or we think that the problem with having like violence campaigns is that this violence will escalate. Let's say even in a small case where like the African American decides to like just fight the police that was treating him unfairly, we see that it can escalate because like others might join in the fight, and how even these small things can cause like bigger collateral damage. When you start having like violent protests, it actually like escalates without people noticing, because violence is very easy to escalate. Like even if you're having a violent protest, like people get killed by others like literally running over the like in protests where people are like are trying to, let's say, damage personal property, people do get hurt. But even worse is that you paint these people in a horrible negative light. So let's say let's say the majority of the country, those who aren't being oppressed, let's say like some of them are more romantic now, they want to help, but then the next day they wake up and they find that their front porch has been damaged, and that some of their fences have been put on fire or whatever, and they find that their house is in collateral damage. Why would they still? What's the incentive for them to help these oppressed minorities anymore? We see that these people instead will be very angry and will even hate on these oppressed minorities anymore. Because now you give them a valid reason instead of just stigma. You give them a valid reason to actually hate and oppress these people furthermore. So we see that the reason why states actually oppress these minorities might be because that they're scared of them, or like they think that on their side, they're actually validating the fact that these people are irrational because that's the only type of people we see that go to violence. And so if the majority of the country starts viewing you as irrational, why would they want to give you the vote, which is reserved for like rational people? There is now no incentive for them to actually try and help the oppressed minorities to get any votes. But also, and so a quick comparison on how outside betters their side. Their side, the people that even in their best case scenario, when they actually get the democratic vote, they still taint the price of democracy with blood, and people view them negatively, so there's still unrest. Whereas on outside, even if you don't get the vote, the people are still upheld morally, and the majority of the country views these people as good people that they are, and not as the violent people that side government wants them to be with all that and very proud photos.
When the state actively denies me the ability to access the channels to fight for change their way, the state is responsible for stripping me away of my choice. The state is responsible for disproportionately putting my brothers and sisters in jail. The state is responsible for me needing to react the way I will react, by acting the way they have towards my brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers throughout the decades. By acting violently, by acting unjustly, by acting irrationally, because that's the way they chose to control us, so we'll push it back to them. We'll become the individuals they are afraid of, not to make them realize that they can no longer subdue us, they can no longer force us to conform to their systems, because we are tired of the way that we are not allowed to choose, we are tired of the way that we are not able to make a change. We will act violently if this means bringing the state more aware of our presence, if this means us actually being able to stand up and speak out for the abuses that they've done. We won't let your state get away with anything. So, in my speech today, I'm going to ask a number of questions deal with opposition or arguments integrated. The first question, do you validate the stigma? We think in the world today, when young black boys get pulled over, shot, or sent to jail because police officers were suspicious, then Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, and Michael Brown were already victims of your stigma, regardless of whether or not they had guns in them, regardless of whether or not they were members of violent protests. We think your society thrives off the violent stigma that your individuals create, not because it actually exists, because this is an excuse that we will always run to in order to push away our African American individuals from being able to participate equally in our society. In your world, regardless of how we act, they just find any other excuse to hate us. Here's why we're fine with validating that stigma. Because even if we do, they now pierce to the point that they have to listen. Every time they deny us a talk, every time they deny us a policy or more anti, then we will assure them we're going to react negatively. We're going to have more protests. We're going to go on your streets, maybe burn down your doors. And that's when you know the point at which you continue to deny us our rights, we aren't going to sit down and take it. We're going to react as much as we can. And that's when you're going to be accountable for the harms that your white people will face by not giving us the privileges that we need and deserve. So sure, your people might be more afraid of us, but that means they're more likely to listen to us. Because they know that we are a scary bunch of people. And that's why we're not the individuals to be messed with. That's why we're not the individuals that you're going to take for a joyride. But here's comparative. We think that even if we do validate the stigma, and maybe the individuals like your civilians may hate African American individuals more, we think they would have anyways, but at least now we have more of an access to institutions and policies and anti, and if anything can use this as a rallying point for more minorities out there. currently don't want to be part of your fight because your fight doesn't bring you any actual change. Your fight only takes you to a certain level where you can have some talk, but it ends there. And looking for all you individuals trapped in your ghettos, all you individuals trapped in receiving welfare that doesn't do anything, they're not going to be the beneficiaries of your wonderful policies being accrued by talking. But you got to the second question on can we be peaceful? Emily Pankhurst threw stones at houses and burned down the property of misogynist males. We think female workers stormed the palace and they denied equal wages of their male counterparts. Violence has always been a part of trying to get your means, or trying to reach the ends with your means. And do you think it's fair for you to say that all these individuals should be denied credibility simply because they didn't get into your means? You denied it. You're not looking at the capitalization concept. These are individuals who have for decades been subjugated and oppressed. They have been the victims of all of these atrocities, where they have had their fathers taken away from them, where they have had their families broken. So if anything, if you want a proportional reaction, we think we should allow them to react proportionally to your state government acting completely out of control. And here's the difference. We are not going to allow the state in your world to get away with these atrocities. And here's why we're finding it being violent. Because the point of it is we are reacting the same way they have, at least we call them out for doing what they've done, and we react the same way they've done before. So when they kill my father, I'll go out there and I'll beat up some of their policemen. I'll make them aware that I won't allow them to get away with these things, and I'll act the same way they have. So they know that I'm not going to sit down and take it. But you may get some sort of change, but we think the difference is your change will never be as much as the change your society will fight for the majority individuals. We don't want to have a minimum anymore. We want to force you to always help us. And this means we want to see as individuals who are equal or even more equal. And this can only happen when there's more attention to this. This can only happen when we become much more of an urgent need because we're going to react in a much more negative manner. Before we move to the third question, any otherwise?
Yes, sir. What is the incentive for the majority of the countries to go for policies favoring these minorities if they view them as irrational and horrible people?
Because they're going to be scared, these minorities. They know the point at which they don't give these minorities their policies, they don't give these minorities their attire, and maybe tomorrow my house might get burned down. Maybe the week after that they're going to have more protests. My children have to see. So they'll hate us anyways. But the difference is we want them to have to fight for our change. And they will only fight for our change when it directly affects them. In your world, you can have your talks, but your talks won't directly affect white people because they can still choose to ignore it. At least when they know they will also be the victims of the crimes that we are going to be forced to make because of you, then they know they'll have to change. But here's the third question and argument. Why a life of violence is better than conforming to the system? And the context of the world is we the quality of life of these individuals is likely not to change when you conform to the oppression. If anything, you legitimize the harms of the government by not speaking up and reacting. Because you're complicit in the harm when you live in your society. When you're an African American who may be privileged and not forced to be part of the system that puts African American boys in jail, you're still complicit in the harm of the individuals going to jail by not speaking up against your government, by not reacting the same way, by not joining the fight. But if anything, you think these are individuals who will also be victims in the future, and that's why they need to fight today. But minorities are currently fractionalized. The reason why a lot of minorities opt out of fighting is because they know that regardless of how much they talk, they'll never get the attack, they'll never get policies made as much for them as is made for white people, and therefore the fight isn't as good as it can be. The benefits of this is we can remove complicity from minorities and create a stronger community for them. Because the point at which we are hated, and we're forced to collectively come together and fight the system together. And we rather everyone collectively fight together than we fractionalize in different parts, being oppressed here and there. When these individuals don't find it a point to get together and actively fight. When they do get together, we create communities for them. Individuals they can depend on. The individuals they should depend on. Because you have more support going towards your minorities rather than the system. You have more support going towards acting against the state. And we think if anything the comparative is, we have an individuals who can have a higher quality of life because they have the means to fight back the oppression that's kept them in a less quality of life, that's kept them subjugated, that's kept them unhappy.
the harms that they have stated under their side are true. Yes, they have been oppressed and have been really brutally oppressed, and we agree to that. However, we disagree in the way that you achieve this and the mechanism in which the way you achieve this is very unjustified because of the innocent lives that are being lost and because it feeds into the fact that these people cannot act rationally and here and cite opposition and arguing the reason why. So we call that a few examples. He said that we want to bring awareness and damage, we want to bring awareness, etc., etc. And we see that this, yes, we can bring awareness, however, we see that the more the awareness that is being brought to the public is more in the negative side because these people are already oppressed. So obviously they are already stigmatized. And when people see these people being violent, it's going to bring a negative light towards these people, and it's going to bring a negative light to these people. And also when you see that, oh, it's getting when we wanted to revenge it, they wanted to push back the violence towards these people. We see that it's not right because in the cause of having violent protest, the innocent lives of people are being lost. There's going to be third party who did not consent to this because we see that yes, your ancestors, your white ancestors might have slaves in the past. And we see that just because your ancestors did does not mean that you have to actually take on the harm. You have to actually be violated, and you're right. You have to be violated, and you have to be harmed along the way. And we see that when we came out and see that, oh, the people will fear and will actually react to it, and they will be forced to listen. We see that the fact that they have to be forced to listen is already a negative harm under the outside. And second of all, we see that we disagree with the fact that they will be forced to listen, and they will be more repelled, and I'm going to tell you my sister this why. And then you come out and see that, oh, violent protest and peaceful protest negotiations won't bring as much change. Sure, it might not bring as much change in the short term. However, we see that first of all, under the outside, we don't think that it will actually achieve any change in the substance, which I'm going to say by second. And second, well, even if it actually does bring change, we do not want to bring change in the cause where innocent lives are being lost, and we see that it's very, very detrimental if these innocent lives are being lost. And we see that, oh, if we don't speak up, if we don't actually act, we are actually legitimizing violence and bring communities together. We see that it's not mutually exclusive under the outside. Because on our side, we are also speaking up. We're actually having people congregate together to have peaceful protest. We see that this is so. We see that an example is like Martin Luther King and Gandhi, where many people march across and actually have peaceful protest and achieve what they want without people getting on the way. Yes.
This is a world where democracy has never catered for people or for oppressed individuals. This means the collective choice of peaceful protest doesn't do anything at all. How do you help minorities by making people listen?
Yeah, we see help minorities by making people listen by understanding. Your side, how are you going to help minorities by having violence? How are you going to help minorities by actually killing people and actually saying that, oh, because on our side, there's a lot of theory gave you examples on how peaceful protests have actually worked. So under your side, how is it going to, even if it brings awareness, how is it justified for all these people? We don't see a point. Now, on my just something on how these minorities are going to be outruled by the majority anyway. Just because we see that these oppressed minorities, the majority have an inherent hatred already to these minorities, and they are already scrutinized thoroughly by the majority of the citizens. And once these people actually damage people, when these people loot people, when these people kill innocent people, actually act aggressively towards these people in the cause of violent protest, we see that this will and cause ruckus in the country. We see that the majority of the people in the country will feel angry and repelled and threatened by these minorities. We see that this does a lot of harm because we see that even it causes chaos, and because these minorities are already disliked and hated, we see that these minorities won't tolerate this, and instead of actually trying to understand because it's violent, we see that because there's no mutual understanding between these people, they will actually react violently, and the government and the people will react violently, and they will actually fight back these people. They will fight these people back, and because and kill more people along the way, and kill more minorities along the way, which is kill more minorities along the way, which is counterproductive. We see that because the majority, it's the majority of the country, because they have the support of the state, etc. We see that they have more guns, they have more weapons, they know more places, they have more tactics, and they have more knowledge and support from the people. And we see that they have more money and funding from the people. Therefore, they can use all this against the minority, which will harm and damage the minority even more, and potentially outrule
lives of our minorities are taken every day as a result of pleasing to your majority. Even if you get some change, should our minorities allow the state to get away with the atrocities that they've committed by staying silent?
Innocent lives are being lost. Yes, the police that killed Michael Brown should be punished, not the people who should be punished. We agree under your side that these minorities are being oppressed, but we see that along the way, you shouldn't violate protest. And if you want to punish, you should be punishing the police that have taken away the life of Michael Brown. And we see that this will potentially entail to harm people, and this will be a vicious cycle, and nothing will be solved if no one is willing to understand and no one is willing to negotiate. Because in the course of violence, everything is started from the heat of the moment. People don't sit down, people won't understand, people will only view what is being first hand, so people will try. And at the end of the day, nothing will be solved, and people and the minority will be overpowered by people. And on my second point on how there won't be any solidarity from the majority at all. Because even if these people want to fight them, even if the majority of the people want to fight them and help them in the country, we see that they are afraid because of the violent protest, because they are trying to achieve it by violent means, and they are afraid of actually being killed along the way. Therefore, they don't want to be associated with negativity. Therefore, they will try to distance themselves from these people, and therefore these people won't achieve anything in the first place. So we see that in the world, all they're trying to solve is that they're saying that these will bring awareness, these will bring awareness, etc. But we see that it's already mutually exclusive under the outside. And on our side, we're at least trying to achieve a peace where people don't get harmed and when they will be productive, when people sit down and listen and actually understand what's trying to happen. Whereas violence on the outside does not work because it facilitates anger.
The lives and property that will be lost in violent protests does not belong to the innocent. Because every privileged individual is complicit in the harms that happen towards the minority by omission. When they are blinded and they ignore and dismiss the harms that happen by virtue of racial profiling, by virtue of police brutality, we don't think anyone is innocent under your paradigm. Every individual who is privileged is complicit in the harm. I'm going to ask 3 questions in this speech. Will violent protests validate the stereotypes that happen? And even if that is true, why is this still okay? Secondly, why a life of violence is preferable for individuals that are forced into social circumstances that force them to undertake this life of violence? And thirdly, will peaceful protest work? So firstly, will we validate violent stereotypes of minorities? Side opposition tries to prove that the media will always negatively portray actions committed by minorities, and they will increase the stereotypes and will negatively portray the individuals as harm. We think there's a difference in the scale of harm that happens under your paradigm. Your media already exaggerates the harmful actions that African Americans commit. The peaceful protests that you say they'll carry out, the media will fabricate collateral damage anyways. They will tell individuals in society that it's not so peaceful. They are harming privileged individuals. They aren't protecting themselves, and they aren't really fighting for a peaceful movement. We live in a world where we have lied to individuals in society to maintain our position of privilege, and we already do this. We all exaggerated the Ferguson riots. We tried to tell individuals they were irrational. We think sensationalization will happen. Already, the comparative is a diverse discussion. As much as we try to sensationalize and paint Ferguson riots as negative, the point at which it becomes controversial, the opinions of minorities are also things itself. So news outlets like BBC and CNN also have to take the opinions of African Americans because people want to know this information as well. In comparison to your peaceful protests, in comparison to your one-dimensional views, where people don't want to hear about African Americans, where it's far easier to sell that Muslims are terrorists, and it's far easier to sell that African Americans are going to commit crimes, and people buy into these things because they just don't have a counter narrative, because there is lesser airtime for minority groups. Even if the media over sensationalize it, you amp up the counter narrative. Even minority media Media from the minorities will be amped up. Poorer media corporations that are predominantly black will also get more airtime and get more support from individuals. But the second thing that you told us was you push away fences, right? These people who are innocent will be harmed and they will be desensitized as they move away from the African American community. So we think a lot of individuals in society are guilty by virtue of negligence. The point at which we harm these individuals is justified. Because these are the same people who turned away from the unarmed shooting of unarmed African American teenagers. These are individuals that were innocent. These are individuals that were guilty. We think we create more awareness under our paradigm. The point at which we spray paint, you are the individuals that caused the harm, or we cause direct collateral damage, which forces individuals to question whether they really are causing that level of damage. But even if people rally for hate and people increase their hate towards African Americans, at least we help the minorities that are victimized under your paradigm. People in society are already subliminally message and subliminally control into believing that African Americans are criminals, into believing that African Americans are violent individuals. At least under our paradigm, we tell minorities that they aren't horrible individuals and they shouldn't conform into the system. They should fight off your police officers. They shouldn't willingly go towards courts. They shouldn't submit themselves towards arrest. Hate will always exist. But the way minorities react towards those hate is far preferable under our paradigm. But we don't force them to internalize the harm and we don't force them to internalize that they are the reason why this is happening. The second question, why life and violence is preferable? We told you that conforming to the system is horrible. It's understandable that fighting against a police officer will cause more collateral damage and more individuals will be harmed in the process. But the comparative is African American teenagers being shot even though they are unarmed. African American teenagers being forced to steal out of desperation and being deprived of jobs because they're just blacklisted for their criminal records, finding it hard to go up the social strata. This is all worse than death or the possibility of being harmed under your paradigm. It's far worse when the African American community is fractionalized, where there are privileged individuals that are disconnected from the fights that underprivileged individuals face. The point at which they unionize and they fight against the oppressions, you get support from people like Beyonce, which actively supported the formation video and supported the fights that the individuals had against police brutality. We think the point at which the support comes, a lot of individuals that are victimized under your paradigm don't internalize those harms. They don't conform towards the stereotypes. They evade police officers. And it's far preferable that they do all these things and they don't go towards jail because it's just a horrible place. What is the comparative under our paradigm? We would rather fight the system because conforming towards the system gives them a horrible life. By the time they come out of jail, they won't be accepted for a job. Won't be accepted for a job. By the time they go into jail, they are forced to be hardened criminals, regardless of whether they are victims of miscarriages of justice or not. We would rather isolate themselves, live in insular communities, and fend for themselves away from the police officers. We would rather communities band together and oppose the police. Because the system that these individuals live in does not give them a better life. They try to tell us that on this third issue, right, that peaceful protests are preferable. Sure.
Wouldn't the majority admire these minorities? If the minorities are actually peaceful and try to negotiate instead of just trying to burn down houses and cause collateral damage?
Or you may not give any airtime to the negotiation that happens, not try to amp it up because people don't want to listen to African Americans trying to voice out their problems. People are already subliminally messaged to believing that they are criminals and anything that they say is harmful. We would rather scare these individuals into being selfish and protecting themselves. If anything, change will come from there. Individuals being selfish and wanting to protect themselves, and as a result, supporting African American movements and supporting the African American community, even if it's bred out of self-preservation. Thirdly, whether peaceful protests would work. We think we have moved past a point where it has worked. We think it's much easier to avoid peaceful protests and to stay silent to the harms that happen. What are examples? When the Umbrella Revolution happened in Hong Kong, there were many peaceful protests that happened, but the Chinese government and the government of Hong Kong chose to simply ignore the problems that happened because there was no collateral damage towards public property and no collateral damage towards the way the state runs their system. We think in the US, the harm could be just as safe. African Americans are already unemployed under your paradigm. They don't possess a harm towards the state to the point at which they pull out of jobs. They don't possess a harm where they don't cause collateral damage towards private property and public property. There won't be a change when the state is complicit in the harms that happens towards the minority. When the individuals are already suffering from these harms and they internalize that they are the reasons why, we would rather than fight with violence.
government has to understand that we are obviously not okay with people being discriminated. We are obviously not okay with innocent civilians, innocent minorities being killed every day. But first of all, the act to get away from this discrimination, to get away from this stereotype, is not to go further into it, Mr. Speaker. And I explain more my pleasures today. But before that, there's a few rebuttals which does not come into my issues. Firstly, when they talk about awareness and how it's going to be good awareness. But look, it's going to be bad awareness. Like how there's good discourse and bad discourse. This bad awareness is going to be people being seen. These people will be seen as violent people who are irrational, people who do not know how to talk properly. That's why that's going to paint them into an even more negative light. But second of all, right, how they say that you validate the stigma is fine. But look, it validates it even more in under your side, because when you have people who are literally being killed and then the person decides to fight back, or the dead person, but people in the community decide to fight back, you see that they be considered as very violent people, and people who cannot think rationally, and therefore stigmatizing them even more into the stereotype, and now even taking away the right for them to vote in the first place. But before I move on to my three questions today, there's a few things we have to clarify. There are people who want to help, and these we call the innocent civilians. These are people who want to help, but maybe they cannot help because they're not in the proper situation. Or maybe they cannot help because they know that if they try to help, they might literally get killed. So these are kind of innocent civilians which are also putting into danger when we decide to have this violent protest, Mr. Speaker. Besides that, we see that the price of democracy, the price of having this discrimination getting lost, we see that it doesn't come at violent protests. Now, moving on to my three questions of today. First of all, even if violent protests work, why are we still not? Why do we think it's still not justified? Second of all, what would these minorities now be seen as by firstly the society and secondly by the international eye? And third of all, the best case, worst case scenario under both sides, right? So first of all, even if the violent protests work, why are we still not justifying it? For my first, second, and third speaker, I already told you that the negative light shine upon them will not be good at all. When the negative light shine upon them, they can never take it back. If they want, if they can take it back, wouldn't they be taking it back now? But then you see, if you're saying that, people are dying on the streets and the only way for people to understand is to have violent protesters back. No, the only thing they don't understand from that is that these minorities not only can resort to violent protests, the only way they want to do this is by barbarians, right? So besides that, how we are hurting innocent individuals in this case, right? Okay, first of all, when there are people on the ground who are standing on the fence, people on the ground who completely agree that black people should not be killed on the street just because they are black, we said we are hurting them as well. This is how vulnerable stakeholders is what they haven't even taken into consideration in the first place, and that's why they really lost from the get-go. But besides that, now it propagates the idea that if I can't get something, and people hate me because I can't get something, or I can't do something, that propagates the idea of that I can just go and violently protest, right? I can just go violently protest to people. We see that though we agree that democratic changes should have all of this things being shown, we see that the effects of getting it, the outcome of getting it, and the way to getting it is not what we want. What we have wanted since the very start is have peace talks and how we have negotiations, or how we can have things which help besides violent protests. My first and second as well also came up to you and told you there's so many examples. Gandhi really peacefully has said that we do not want this to be discriminated, and we also have people such as anyone who has come up and told you, told people with a group of people saying that look, this is not the way we want to be treated, and therefore you should not treat us like that. And we see that even though they can try over years and years of time, we see that we rather have them try years and years of time rather than their whole image being burnt just because of that you want violent protest to get acceptance, right? Now, secondly, what would these minorities be seen as? Firstly, by the society, and secondly, by the international art. But before that, speak.
So, if you agree that change will happen, why is the image of the minority more important than the safety?
Yeah, right now, okay. See, so now the minorities will be seen as a violent gang, or how they will be seen as rational people, as already told you, and how the safety of these people can come this safety of these people, we are sorry that people are dying, but you have to see that even under your side, more people will die, because we see that when we see that people are
deeming them as violent people or deeming people such as horrible people, these minorities, they are more likely to stop them on the streets, more likely to check them whether they have a gun, or more likely to blame them because they have a self issue. No, please sit down. They have issues, right? And when we have these habits, more civilization will happen even more, and people will be killed or arrested even more under your side, right? So government isn't solving anything. Isn't solving anything. But second of all, how they really be seen by the international eye, right? You see that media will paint them in a negative light. And fine, if they want to come out and argue that the negative media wouldn't, you see that so the negative they can exaggerate the problem. Let's say the person let's say black guy stabbed this guy once. Maybe they can say they brutally murdered, they disfigured, there's a third degree murder. We see that that is not something we should need to face in today's case, right? And then once again, government isn't solving anything under their side. Now, moving on to my third question, best case and worst case scenario under both sides. The best case scenario from what I got from government is that it will work. Then people will fear them. And then the worst case is that it wouldn't work. And then now it gives them a even more reason to stigmatize them. And the best case on the outside is that the peace talk work, and then therefore there's more progression there. But even on our worst side, it's still better than their best case scenario. That if peace talks don't work, try again, try again, try again, try again until you can get it. Because if you cannot get it once, get it later on. Now let's just bit about the best case scenario on government. Right? Best case scenario on the government, from what I got, what I interpreted is that people will stop on the street from being feared of. Is that what you really want side of government? People to be fearing you, people to just be fearing you just because you're a certain minority. We do not need the fear that besides that the fear will not work because remember, not only because that they are minorities, but also the fact that since they will be paid even in the worst light and even be even more negatively now on. And the worst case scenario we try and try it, and at least now we know that these people are rational and these people can have direction and these people can think for themselves without doing anything violent, right? Unlike the stereotype which they are currently having. And therefore, if you want a society which actually helps these minorities, unlike them who always think that this is the best case scenario to only fight for violence, we see that which is like opposition. Therefore, I'm proud to oppose.
because there's no harm. We see that let's compare, right? How will a government actually try to change? Because on our side, we already told you, because violence promotes anger, violence promotes chaos, people don't understand in violence. Government won't try to change this because they see people, however, under our side, the negotiation, everything, government will actually try to, even if it takes a long time, we see that it still does not take, it still brings benefits under our side. We see that on the whole point of how they see that peaceful protests won't get airtime and how violence brings awareness. We see that no, that is not true. News channels like CNN, BBC, it's not, they're not going to completely wipe out everything, they're not going to completely put up something false, they will obviously put it up. And even if they actually try, even if these people try to get violent means to put it up, you see that because these people are thoroughly scrutinized by society already, because these people, they will try to find fault in everything they're doing, we see that they will actually use the violent methods to actually make it escalate into something more. And third of all, we see on the other side, we see that they will actually want the thing. We see that that's not true, because you cannot create collateral damage. You just cannot come up and say that, oh, a black person came out and started shooting everyone when they did not do it, when they just stood up there doing violence, when you just stood up there having peaceful negotiation, because this put these people at a higher pedestal than the CNN piece, which is not right. And you see that even if they actually do this, you see that the people, other people, not necessarily other people from other communities, obviously sue these people for defamation because they are already on their side, and because these people, the property owners people, are already gathering support from people because of the means of the way they're doing. So on our side, we already tackle the ways in which we can try to help these people without having damage done.
In society, my life is predetermined for me by virtue of my skin color, conforming to oppression is akin to poisoning. We need society to change. And regardless of how society feels about that change, if it is an objectively good change, then that's one that we'll fight for, because it currently does not exist in our society. And every day we waste trying to conform to your system in order to achieve it, that's another day we lose being able to help more of the poor, more of the most underprivileged, more of the most vulnerable. In my speech there, I'll ask a number of questions to you in opposition. The first question, will we create bad awareness for minorities? Will good awareness work? We think maybe, but here's the difference. Good awareness will take much longer. Good awareness means a lot less people will know about it simply because it's that much less controversial, and it's also much harder to achieve good awareness when people in status quo already do hate us. So we're forced to try to get your good awareness while also being victims of a stereotype that makes us already part of your bad awareness. So in the time that we waste trying to achieve good awareness, we know that more people are denied opportunity and more people are stripped of their rights. So if anything, we prolong the ability for more individuals to be oppressed and to be hurt. But we're also complicit in causing this. And here's why we need to change it. Because comparative is bad awareness will be your current awareness. If your media is going to sensationalize, deny, abuse, and use all these things against us, we're fine with that. Because they sensationalize to the point where we're unbelievably scary, but we are seen as being unbelievably effective in making sure your houses get burned down, and we let society fester with that thought in their mind. The point at which they continue to deny our opportunities, then this angry group is going to get back at my children, is going to get back at my family. So if anything, and if I can't control that, I want to fight for that. I don't want to be I don't want my administration to be the administration that had the most amount of protests in the streets. I don't want to be the individual who's most complicit in denying these individuals their rights. I think if anything, we at least get more people to be worried about what happens if you don't fight for an individual's rights. But If more people are scared, at least we have more of an access to rights. So even when we do get our policy, we are fine with white people being scared of this. We are fine with white people being angry at this. Because they kill us all the time, and we fear them. We don't see how justice works in our favor to make them the individuals that support democracy. So we don't have to follow your system that doesn't cater to us. But will more minorities get thrown under the bus? Because it's brought up by Ockwhip that now we're going to have a lot more individuals be like also getting stereotyped, also getting denied opportunities. But if inequality is real, and minorities are already the most underprivileged, then they'll be thrown under the bus anyways by virtue of their skin color. Here's the difference. We think that now when someone is denied a job, that now when someone is frisked randomly, we don't see your communities going out there and fighting against that, calling on your police officers, protesting in the streets, making you realize why what you're doing is offending me personally and my entire race, my entire culture. The point at which it already happens, what we give to you is we want these individuals to go out there and make that issue make the issues too huge to ignore. So we have society need we make them respond. But should minorities get thrown under the bus? Then yes. Because the point at which they are, everyone's complicit. We want them to be a community so they have more fight to get your individuals to listen to us. But who's more moral? We think that morals are subjective, like democracy, like what it means to be a good civilian. But access isn't. If we can accrue more benefits for race that's underprivileged by acting immorally, we say that we are the individuals with the moral high ground. But what about privileged white people feeling accountable for hurting underprivileged black people? Well, yes, if a 5-year-old child grows up in a world where he knows he is responsible for all these other individuals for getting rights, and when he grows up and becomes an individual of influence and power, what's your 5-year-old child going to do? What's your privileged individuals going to do? We want them to be aware that they're responsible. We want them to be aware that there's a problem. Because that problem needs to change. And we'll decide who gets to that fastest.